Here's a question for you. What makes a great sequel? Now, I know that film fans are incredibly wary of sequels at this point, and look, I can't blame you. The art of the sequel has largely gone corporate, but it's important to remember that there are plenty of films out there that are sequels and are pretty damn good. I mean, think about Toy Stories 2 and 3, The Godfather Part 2. Hell, there are some sequels that are even better than their originals. Think of Terminator 2 Judgment Day or The Empire Strikes Back, right? There are some great sequels out there. So the question is, what makes a good sequel? Why do some sequels do even better than their originals, or at the very least help to inform their predecessors? Well, the answer to this question can be found in the two films that we are talking about today. Two sequels to one of the most beloved films of all time, and the very first film that we covered on this very show. Today we're talking about Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3. Now, I know what you film fans are telling me. Larry, Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3? I mean, I like Part 2. It's pretty good, but Part 3? What are you talking about over here? Let me tell you, these movies have not gotten their due justice. Both Part 2 and Part 3 not only give us new, fresh ideas to help deepen the world of Back to the Future, but they also help to more firmly establish the characters and relationships and themes found in that first film. And it all makes for a beautiful, cohesive experience of a trilogy that is one of cinema's best. So, what makes Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3 such great sequels? Well, to answer that question, I brought on two of my closest friends, screenwriter and content creator Steven Reyes, alongside filmmaker and EB Indie Film Festival co-founder Kevin Lin. In our second My Favorite Movie Is doubleheader and our season finale, we dive deep into Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3 and give you all of our insights into why these films exemplify what makes a good sequel. Hello and welcome to My Favorite Movie Is, a podcast all about why we love our favorite movies. My name is Larry Freed, and I am a New Jersey-based filmmaker and, more importantly, film lover who every other week sits down with other passionate movie fans as they tell the personal stories behind their favorite movies. Thank you so much for being here, but just a warning, we go way past the red tape and deep into spoiler territory on this show. If you haven't seen the movies that we're talking about today, you've been warned. In the meantime, we've covered other movies on this show, maybe some of which you've actually seen. So be sure to find us wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your energy and your attention. We know you probably listen to plenty of podcasts out there, and well, we're honored to be one of them. With that being said, let's get started. Gentlemen, welcome to My Favorite Movie Is. This is a very special occasion. This is the first episode I have with two guests in studio. Yes. And we're all recording together in the same room. And it's a very special occasion because it's also our season finale.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3. So to give just a little bit of context, both of you already know this, but we recorded an episode with Max Mariner on Back to the Future Part 1.
Yes.
Which was our season premiere, the show premiere, our entire premiere. And we wanted to have you guys on to talk about Back to the Future Parts 2 and 3 because both of your favorite films are also Back to the Future. But we can't have three people do the same movie.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Back to the Future has 3 parts. It would be such a better idea if we had both of you here to talk about Parts 2 and 3, the films that I think are less beloved than the first one, but have just as much merit in certain ways as the first one. Kevin, you hadn't said a single word yet.
I'm nodding.
You're just nodding?
I'm nodding.
Steven is particularly representing Part 2
yes.
in the discussion, and Kevin is representing Part 3.
Part 3.
So we're going to start this conversation off like how we start every conversation on the podcast. I want to talk about, and really this is going to be for the whole trilogy because you can't really talk about 2 and 3 without talking about 1. Tell me about your first experience with the Back to the Future trilogy, and then, you know, based on whichever movie is yours, particularly tell me a little bit about what it was like watching that film and what you took out of it.
So I discovered the Tridge in
I don't like this. I don't like this very much at all.
No, I I started watching the trilogy when I was very young. When I first moved to New Jersey, I was about 4 or 5 years old. My dad went to Best Buy and he got the original trilogy box set, which was like, it was just, I think it might have been the first time all 3 were released on DVD.
It was the silver one, right? Or something like that.
It was like a blue one.
Yeah, yes.
It wasn't, obviously it wasn't the 20th anniversary one because it hadn't been 20 years yet. So it must have been the one that came out before that.
Yeah, I think it was right around the time when DVD started getting really big. So this is the first time all 3 were in like a thing together.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, and you know, that little kid thing when like you see a movie you watch, you just want to watch it all the time.
All the time.
So that's what happened. And then I coincidentally lost the first one. I could never find the first one. I still have no idea where it is.
You still don't know where it is.
I have no idea where it is.
So your box
Sure you
set
didn't leave
to
in
this
1955?
day is still just 2 and 3.
That particular box set. I have 2 other ones.
Oh, no, now, okay. Well, at least he got the first
Blu-ray
one back.
and one that includes the animated series.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
But I lost the first one, but that was okay because I loved the second one. Because the second one to me is when I feel like Back to the Future Part 1, it's a staple. It's a classic. Part 2 is where I think a lot of the series iconic moments happen. Because it's a movie that I can probably do for you like the first 15 minutes.
Like straight.
Off the top of my head. Yeah.
Top that, Kev.
Like, I don't know. Like, to me, like when I was a kid, I think the future stuff was really what grabbed me. I was just like, oh, hoverboards and, you know, the future. It was really cool to me. I would say my favorite moment watching it is watching it on Back to the Future Day, like the day where they go to the future. Mm-hmm. I watched it on that day. I made sure to watch it on that day just because.
As you do. Right?
Yeah. And it was so funny because it's the first time that I watched it, like the second one, and just seeing that, like, you know, like when I was a kid and I watched it, I was like, man, the future's gonna be awesome, dude. And then like now you're watching it and you're just like, none of that shit happened.
6 years past 2015, though.
Yeah, I know. It was. It's
They
becoming.
didn't get everything right. They got some things right,
some
though.
things right,
They
yeah.
got some things pretty close.
It got a shocking number of things.
You wearing your
Yeah.
pockets inside out?
For that day, I did. For that day, I did. I think that all 3 movies together tell, as Max said, a very interesting story about destiny and about spitting in the face of it. I think that all 3 movies, you know, have very important things to say about it. And important things is my favorite line in the whole series is Doc's last line where he just says,
It means your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one. Both of you.
we have the power to make the future that we want to make. And I think that is something that I think has aged spectacularly well.
Similarly, my first run-in with Back to the Future, I remember my babysitter at the time had the same box set. We had all 3 films.
Didn't lose the first one. So owned, burn.
So fast forward to like when I'm more conscious of things. They showed the first one at AMC. I remember that.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So is that how you first watched it?
That's the first time I have like the fondest memory of watching it. Of Back to the Future 1. And then we got the box set. And I still knew what Back to the Future was, and I knew the zeitgeist of it, if that's the right word to do.
Right. Through osmosis, you knew what Back to the Future
you knew
was.
what the DeLorean was.
Yeah, like it was recognizable to me. And then me being the impressionable younger brother, my brother was really into Back to the Future, so I was into Back to the Future. When I watch one, I have to watch the others.
Right.
Like
it's like a complete package.
Yeah, it's like whenever I see Back to the Future on TV, like any of the 3 films, I'm like, all right, I will watch like a couple minutes of it and like go do work or something. I just sit there and watch it. I'm
you have to.
I'm already here. Might as well watch the rest of it and just enjoy it. I was in the camp that saying that Back to the Future Part 3 wasn't as good, but it was still fun. And then upon rewatching it for this, and also just like when I catch it on TV, it's like I'm watching it again and I'm like, oh, this movie kind of slaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very correct.
Like I enjoyed it before, but I was like, oh no, this movie's actually really like heartwarming and really, really cute to the overall Back to the Future lore, I guess.
The mythos.
Yeah. Like just the whole world that movie exists in. It's a really nice, heartwarming, like Marty Doc story. It's really nice seeing just Marty and Doc interact with each other and like just like be bros. Like it's a very much like
just guys being dudes.
This is a bunch of guys being
in
dudes,
the old West.
Pretty much. And it kind of showed like Marty, he kind of becomes like the
voice of reason.
Yeah, the voice of reason. To Doc, like the one scene that I thought was really effective. Doc is saying how he's gonna stay with Clara the night before they plan to go back to 1985. And Doc's like, oh, I want to stay with Clara. And then Marty's like, but you've told me don't mess with like the past or anything like that.
I cautioned you about disrupting the continuum for your own personal benefit. Therefore, I must do no less. We shall proceed as planned, and as soon as we return to 1985, we'll destroy this infernal machine. Traveling through time has become much too painful.
He's obviously upset about it, but like he's like, all right, yeah, you're right. We have to like make this right.
I love that scene. I'm really glad that you brought that up because I think that scene is also similarly to what you were saying before is a really great distillation of the themes or really the conflict, I guess, like the thematic conflict of the movie.
I feel like with parts 1 and 2, it has that like 80s, early 90s excess to it. Like it's like very
Yes.
It's kind of bombastic. Like, it's like the score, that 80s and 50s music just blaring. And like
It's the quintessential 80s teenage like movie.
Where I feel like part 3 doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have like, it has the score, but the score is a lot more stripped back. It's a lot more subtle. And I think it's the first time in the series where the movie is completely character driven as opposed to like, Marty has a goal in mind, but that goal lasts for the entire movie. It's not like, oh, he has to make sure that, his dad has the thing. He has to make sure he has to go back to the 50s again to stop it. This one is just, we have to get back to 85.
The whole reason why that movie like happens is because like Marty is going back to 1885 out of the goodness of his heart to get Doc back.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's really cute.
What you just said kind of segues well into a conversation that we need to have. Steven does not want to have this conversation, but I'm going to have it because it's my podcast and I'll do what I want. I think Back to the Future Part 3 is better than Part 2. And
I win.
You're so wrong.
I win.
Winner.
Yes.
I understand that very, very few people have this take.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about this because I think it's so vital. And I think you gave me a little bit of ammo just then because
oh my God,
the whole thing about this is Part 2 to me sticks out like a sore thumb in the trilogy. You wouldn't think it when you're watching it because the movies feel so consistent. Obviously, Robert Zemeckis directed all of them and they feel very stylistically similar in a lot of ways, even though they're in different time periods. But the difference is that in Back to the Future Part 1 and Part 3, Marty is displaced in a world like out of his own merit. Like he goes back to 1985 and 1885 and he, before any plot even happens, we just kind of live in the worlds. Like he just sort of goes there and there's that, obviously the iconic scene in Back to the Future Part 1 where he first gets to Hill Valley and we see like Mr. Sandman and we see all the great details. And it's the same in 1885. The scene is almost like not exactly replicated, but replicated to a pretty strong degree.
Of it.
I think that is very intentional because I think,
of course,
I think it's playing on your sense of familiarity.
Definitely.
Like and I think that's why I don't really have a problem with it. I've never had a problem.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but you're just kind of like, oh man, like you just hear the music cues specifically, and you're like, okay, here we go again.
McFly Farm.
When I was rewatching Back to the Future 2 for this, I couldn't help but think that like it felt like a 3-episode miniseries of some sort.
Yeah, because what happens is in Back to the Future, Doc takes Marty. In Back to the Future Part 2, he takes Marty and he goes, we have to go to the future. And immediately when they get into the future, they're like, okay, we have all this plot. We have to do all these things.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
exactly.
blah, blah, blah. And it's not bad. Like the plot is engaging and I'm interested and I'm entertained by it. And it's a very... in terms of the world building, it's interesting. Like I want to see all these characters.
But it's a lot of world building.
But it's so much so early on. And I think one more point I'll say before we like kind of, let loose. When you do the past, you have all of these references you can draw on, and you can basically make a period piece based on the past. So that's exactly how the first and the third one function. In 2, you have the risk of shooting yourself in the foot with all the future stuff. Some future references I look back and I'm like, okay, like it's a little goofy. And when you combine that, like, it's less impenetrable, I guess, as if you went to the 80s or the Wild West. So that in combination with the amounts of plot, it felt less immersive to me. Like Back to the Future Part 2 doesn't feel as immersive to me as 3, when it feels like there's less. I mean, normally this is it's a problem, but here I would say it's a good thing. When you have less of a driving force driving you through parts 1 and 3, it feels a little bit more organic, like we're sort of discovering the worlds. And with part 2, like it just feels a little bit less organic and more like we're sort of being shoved into the plot of the film, as opposed to the characters sort of just like, because the Wild West especially, I think even more than 1, the Wild West, we're just living it. We're just in it. And we're like, obviously there's the plot, but it really takes a back seat to just the like having fun in the Wild West.
What I will say about that is just they only really spend like the first act of the movie in the future. And I think that if the whole movie was if you're doing that through the entire movie, through like all 3 acts are just them just constantly explaining the future, I think I would agree with you. But the fact that it's so front loaded, and it's like after the first like 30 minutes, they stop doing that. But
then they go into the alternate 1985. They have a whole other. You have that whole Biff news thing, which is basically just an exposition.
But again, it's playing on your expectations.
That's true. That's true.
You know how this is supposed to look.
Right.
You know, because we saw it in the last one. You know that Marty's parents are rich but still live in the same house for some reason.
They'd like to live a modest life.
I think the return to 85 is done so well. Like the fact that it's different. Like the fact that when Marty drops off Jennifer and says,
I remember bars being on these windows.
Yeah, that is good. It's good pacing. The scene has good pacing.
Yeah, and then he goes in this room and that kid is in his bed because it's not his room anymore.
It's a great twist,
for
sure.
2, I would say, is the most plot driven of the 3.
Definitely.
I will say that. But I will say that it does it so well. I think that it manages to juggle these 3 things in the air so well. Like it manages to juggle going to the future and the repercussions of that, the alternate 1985, having to go back to the 50s and basically make sure that not only do you do this other thing that you have to do, which you also make sure that the plot of the first movie happens while that's still going on. I think that is like the balance of the 3. I think it's done so masterfully, because it would be really easy for them to just make a carbon copy of the first one. Everybody loved the first one. I think that's what the studios probably wanted them to make. And I think the fact that they basically took the first movie and they like kind of made it a heist movie. It essentially is a heist movie.
Time heist.
Like
time heist.
Yeah. It's literally a time heist. Like
don't they reference Back to the Future in Endgame?
Yeah.
So our references
all, like,
astute.
time travel movies.
Right.
It manages to kind of play on your expectations, because you've seen the first one, you know what happens in the first one. Now watch what happens in the first one, but in a brand new context, a brand new genre, brand new stakes. And I think part 3 for me, it was always good, but I feel like it just goes on a little bit too long. And
really,
after a while, I felt like
Kevin's like,
because I felt like it went by really quickly.
I don't know. To me, like again, I love all 3 movies. I think.
See, he got ruined by the plot forwardness of the sequel. So he's like, now the sequel's like, this is boring.
No.
And now you're like, I want to live in the third one, and the second one is so front loaded.
No. I've always liked 3, and I've always thought that 3 got a really bad rep for no reason. Some of the problems with 3 are warranted. Like I do feel like it does get a little boring, because they do kind of repeat a few scenes. Like how many times can you have Clara and Doc look at each other? Kind of. I feel like
as many times as they damn well want.
No. Don't get me wrong. I love their relationship. I think that Doc deserves like everything he gets in that movie. Like it is so earned, all of those scenes. But I feel like at a point, it's like all the scenes are kind of the same. They both obviously like each other, but they're not going to say anything because Doc doesn't want to ruin anything because he's from the future. And it's like at a point, I'm just like, okay, I've seen this scene 10 minutes ago. And I think that's why I think 3 falls off for me. It's just like it's more character driven, but it does this. It kind of has the same character beats over and over again. And I know I said that about familiarity, but I feel like
yes, Steven.
To me, like the second one is much more focused on just we have a goal and we have to make that goal, and then no goal happened. We have to make that goal, and it just kind of keeps going. And it doesn't stay in the same place for too long. That's what I'm gonna say. Where I feel like part 3, it's very relaxed. Like,
yes.
You have the ticking clock, but you still, like, it's very relaxed. There's a lot more, like, scenes.
Very somber, I think.
It's very somber. That's I think the word I'm looking for. You know, some things might happen, some things might not happen. Don't really matter.
Who cares? You can't go back 1985. Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Just become a cowboy or something, man.
I'm
Just go to the
Be a
bar.
cowboy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
man.
stay here.
I mean, a lot
Listen,
more things
if
are legal
I
here
could
now.
Oh, that's true. If I could time travel, I would love to take a little stint in the Old West. Not that much, though.
I think for me, I like the slowness of it, because one is very well paced.
I think we can all agree 1 is the best of the trilogy. Well, no, you think 2 is the best of the trilogy.
2 is the best.
Horrible. Horrible. We both agree that we like 1 more than 3. I think in a general sense.
There's literally nothing I would change about Back to the Future 1. And then Back to the Future 2, as you said, it just keeps on going. It's just like one thing after another, which is cool. And then with just 3, it's just like, it's more of, I guess, like a reward for watching the whole thing in its entirety.
Interesting.
Where it's like,
I never thought about that.
you have these 2 crazy, wacky adventures. But then 3 is just like, yeah, you already know what to expect. So we're gonna like just play into our tropes and into our like goofs and gaffs, like Doc and Marty switching lines and all that stuff. Like they are very well aware of like the things they're referencing. Like when Mad Dog and Marty meet for the first time, and he's like, "What's your name, dude?" And he's just Clint Eastwood, and then they chase him out of the thing, and then he doesn't have a skateboard or anything. He can't run. That's why he gets like caught and like almost hanged.
Yeah,
because like he would steal a horse.
It's a really great subversion.
Yeah.
of it. And then what's great is that Doc comes to save Marty.
Yeah,
which is a great sort of
with that badass
yeah.
homemade sniper rifle.
Yeah,
that was
that's
so cool.
Haven't had a hanging in a long time. They'll shoot the fleas off a dog's back at 500 yards, Tannen, and it's pointed straight in your head.
And that's like the kind of thing that I personally like. These like character moments, and you kind of have to watch part 1, part 2, I think, to like kind of fully appreciate
that. I will concede. Yeah.
They pretty much don't explain like their relationship. You kind of just gotta know.
Well, yeah, it is the third part.
It is. If you
of
haven't
a
watched
trilogy.
part 1 and part 2,
yeah.
why? Yeah,
But it is effortless, though. Their friendship and their chemistry in the film is effortless because they've honed their relationship so well over the course of 2 movies.
Yeah, I think there's like when like after he saves Marty. And they give each other like a nice little smile, like a bro like tap on the shoulder, and I'm like, they're homies for life.
I do like the scene where he comes back and Doc said, "Who the fuck dressed you?" And Marty, Marty was like, "You did," and then they hugged. That's a great moment. I love that moment.
What idiot dressed you in that outfit?
You did.
The character dynamics, I think, is what makes part 3 worth it for me.
Right. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this week's episode of My Favorite Movie Is. I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I just wanted to remind you all that you can find more episodes of My Favorite Movie Is by going to our show page on your podcasting platform of choice. And if you like video podcasts, we actually post our video versions for every podcast episode on YouTube. New audio episodes drop every other Monday, and then video episodes drop that following Friday. So I hope you'll subscribe and follow us and hit that notification bell and do all of the things you got to do to stay updated on when new episodes go live. Another way to stay updated on when new episodes go live and get some fun bonus content and sneak peeks in between episodes is to follow us on our social media pages at MFMI Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I hope you guys will find us there and stay updated and check out all the cool stuff we're doing on those platforms. And finally, for a full catalog of audio and video episodes, as well as more information about the show and how you can contact us for any reason, you can go to mfmipodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening to My Favorite Movie Is. Let's get back to the show.
Does anyone else have any other takes on the films or favorite moments or things they want to bring up into the discussion?
I have something from both movies I want to talk about.
Okay, fine.
The special effects.
You want to talk about? The VFX.
I will gladly talk about that.
I feel like we have to talk because I was watching it, and there's a scene where it's old Biff and young Biff in the car, and young Biff's reading the almanac.
Right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then he throws it, it lands, and old Biff picks it up.
Yeah. It lands
amazing.
behind old Biff, right? It lands in old Biff's shot. Because it's a split screen, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that's, first of all, shout out to Thomas F. Wilson, who is, in my opinion, the MVP of the entire trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
Because nobody talks about him, really. Everyone makes fun of him, which, like, rightly so, because Biff is an idiot. But in my opinion, Thomas F. Wilson has the best, like, group of performances in the second one. Because he's great as Biff, duh.
Yeah.
He's so good as old Biff, like
Old Biff.
geezer Biff. And then as regular Biff, he has that dramatic moment, like in the room with the safe with Marty. That's just like
I love that.
Crazy great dramatic
really
scene.
Cool.
He said someday a crazy, wild-eyed scientist or a kid may show up asking about that book. And if that ever happens... It's funny. I never thought it would be you.
Yeah.
And no one's talking about Griff.
And Griff, of course. Griff is a classic.
I just applied the code now. Yeah, with your eyes closed. Like, that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite lines.
But yeah, no,
that is such a good impression. It's kind of scary, to be honest, how good that impression
When
is.
did you become the physical type?
Wow! Since when did you become the physical type?
When we're talking about the special effects, I would argue that arguably the best scene to highlight those visual effects is that scene that you're talking about with both Biffs.
Because I never realized it since I watched it recently. They interact with each other.
Yeah.
So it's not like one of them sits on one side of the frame, the other sits on the other side of the frame.
I forgot that it was a split screen because it was so good.
I think it says a lot that not only do the movies still look great, obviously, I think to the layman, they still hold up incredibly well. But even to people like us, we all have experience trying to pull things off like this, the split screens and the VFX and all that stuff. And it's hard. It still feels seamless. Like the scene with Biff still surprises us because we're like, how the frick did they do that? Like it's crazy. Like when he throws the almanac behind him and it falls in the other shot. And you think it's a split screen and then it totally befuddles you.
That and the fact that there are so many long takes in that scene.
Yeah, like a ton of the scenes are just like the camera's moving. Yeah. It'll be on the 2, it'll move to Biff in the 1, and then it'll move back to the 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
After like he does the thing on the radio where like he predicts his score and he gives him Biff's like, all right, I'll take a look at it. And then he hits him with the cane.
Yes.
And then it goes back out. They interact with each other so much. And I think that is such a testament to the hard work that the FX team did on just making sure that this was seamless as possible.
Well, that's very nice. Thank you very much. Now, why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
It's leave, you idiot. Make like a tree and leave. You sound like a damn fool when you say it wrong.
All right, then leave and take your book with you.
Kevin is a visual effects person. He has some experience working on it. Yeah, you dabble, but you have probably a better idea of the vocabulary and the technology than we do. Kevin and Steven were members of my production crew when we filmed the first episode. And I remember you made a comment to me that they used these motion cameras, but in specific, they choreographed the motion basically. So that way, when they reshot everything, it would be the same shot.
Yep.
I also think of the long takes with Marty's home, where Michael J. Fox is playing like 3 characters in one shot.
The shot when they go back to 1955 and Marty he's just leaving the dance. Both Martys are just leaving the dance because after he puts the sand back on people, the camera pans, follows, tracks Marty out the door, pans back up, and then there's I guess not Marty Prime coming down.
Marty Prime.
Because Marty Prime is the one that we're following. So I don't know. I guess I would call him past
1955
Marty.
Martyist Marty.
Yeah.
1955 Marty, basically.
But like in the past.
Right.
Interacting with things is like how you make VFX like grounded. And I think the Back to the Future 2 does that a lot. which is very effective.
Yeah.
A lot of things are surprisingly miniatures also. Not in the
right. Well, they do
but in
some
general
miniature stuff.
Yeah, but like in general also like I think like the whole like I mean all the I guess green screen assets for when they're flying up in the not space highway. I'm thinking like Star Wars.
It's basically a space highway.
Yeah, in the sky highway. Yeah.
A skyway.
The Skyway.
The Skyway. Yeah. It's all. I think that's all like miniature work.
Right.
Which you don't think about sometimes.
Robert Zemeckis is a crazy detailed filmmaker, incredible technician. Back to the Future Part 2 and all three of them just like are using everything, not just the effects, but like there's a lot of backs of heads and stuff. Like there's a lot of people who had to double parts, who had to like do the hair and makeup and costumes. And
George McFly particularly because they couldn't get I forgot his actor's name.
Crispin Glover.
They couldn't get it.
Back with it.
They have to get in costume and have to like redo the hair and stuff. And you have to have that. You have to have the effects team. The actors need to like be
Timing
able
needs
to
to be, like,
communicate with
Pinpoint
themselves.
perfect.
Yeah, they need to literally do it beat for beat for beat. It's just incredible in the 80s that Robert Zemeckis had all of those things like in place.
Yeah, it's like they knew what they wanted to do and they made sure that they had the means to do it as seamless as possible.
Yeah, it's a testament to just how incredible these films are that all of these effects worked. Let's move on to the lightning round. We're rearing the end of the conversation, but this is going to be fun because we're doing it with two different people.
Yes.
So, Steven, I'm going to ask that you represent 2, and Kevin, you represent 3. I'm going to ask you guys questions, the superlatives for these movies, and I'm going to ask you guys to give me the most impulsive answers you can. Any questions before we get started?
I'm ready.
Bring it on.
Okay, here we go. Favorite scene?
Hoverboard scene.
The hoverboard chase with Griff.
Hoverboard chase.
Claire and Doc under the stars.
Great choice. Favorite character, and if different, favorite performance?
I'm going to say it's Biff. And favorite performance, Thomas F. Wilson.
Yeah, so Biff for both.
Any Biff, Griff, all the Biff, whatever.
All the Biffs is.
The Biff-I.
The
Biff-I.
if you will.
The collective known as
The Biff
Biff.
Force 5. As
Biff Force 5.
Kevin?
Christopher Lloyd.
So Doc,
Yeah,
for
Doc.
both.
Yeah.
Favorite line? You have to have, the movie backwards and forwards. You have to have a specific one.
Favorite line is the alternate 1985 Lorraine, where after Biff says, "And who's gonna pay for your surgery?" And she goes, "You're the ones that wanted these things. You can have." That's my favorite scene.
Who's gonna pay for your cosmetic surgery, Lorraine?
You were the one who wanted me to get these things.
Great Scott. I know this is heavy.
When they switch lines.
When they switch lines.
Great Scott.
I know this is heavy.
Favorite shot or sequence of shots?
Favorite shot is when they're on top of Biff's pleasure palace and the DeLorean kind of comes up
Great shot.
to reveal that Marty didn't die. I think it's so cool.
I guess when Kara and Doc are like looking up at the stars and things that over the shoulder and you see all the stars.
We've already spilled a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but if there's any other favorite like behind the scenes trivia or know-how that you want to, you have.
That this is the first credited appearance for Elijah Wood.
It is.
He was one of the kids.
Right, he's one of
in
the
a thing
kids.
It's a
where he's like, I'm a
baby's
crack
toy.
shot. And then they're just like, that's a baby's toy.
kid's toy.
Yeah, and he has like that green visor or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Classic 2015 future wear that everyone wears now.
Probably that Robert Zemeckis did Roger Rabbit right before 3.
Right.
Because like there's that like outtake where Seamus brings in Roger Rabbit as like his hunt. And I'm like, man, poor Roger Rabbit, because they used the stand-in dummy
right.
for the movie. So I thought that was cool because like that's also a technical marvel also.
Yeah, but
so
Roger Rabbit is arguably more technically marvelous than any of the 3 Back to the Future movies in terms of the animation.
Yeah.
This is going to be an interesting one because I'm not allowing you to use any of the Back to the Future sequels for this answer.
Oh, okay.
But if you were going to pair this movie with another movie for a double feature, which would you pick? You kind of have it off easy, but I'm kind of interested to know which one you would pick.
I would pair this with any Edgar Wright movie because
That's a bit of
that's
a
not the
cheap
question. You gotta
answer.
pick a movie.
Which one?
The World's End. I would pair this movie with The World's End.
The World's End. Interesting.
Because it plays off of the same sense of familiarity as the first one. But the difference with The World's End, it's more with the characters. But it's more like something isn't right.
Right. And The World's End is a little sci-fi esque, which Back to the Future Part 2 is also
sci-fi
like
esque
that.
with human relationships at the center of it.
Right.
I think that it pairs really well because not only do I think Edgar Wright and Back to the Future just makes sense to me, but also I feel like it's a movie about destiny. It's a movie about going back and creating your own future, creating your own.
That's true. Two very different endings.
Very different endings.
Takes that question and answers it with two very different answers. But that could make that's a good double header. That's what makes for a good double feature.
Roger Rabbit.
So you're gonna steal Max's what should have been Max's answer.
Wait.
No, Max said Spider-Man, but he said maybe Roger Rabbit's a better answer. You're gonna say Roger Rabbit. Because they were made in the same time.
Yeah, that and also like if you like Back to the Future 3 and even 2 with like it's like more cartoony aspects, like Roger Rabbit is just all cartoons. Just fun, it's like a fun, wacky adventure.
Right, yeah. I thought you were gonna say like Magnificent Seven or something. Like just, a Lone Ranger, like a Western.
So here's the truth. I've never seen Magnificent Seven. I wanted to see it, but I didn't.
No, that's fine.
Have you seen any other Westerns?
Hateful Eight.
I would not pair this with Hateful Eight.
Nothing that comes to my mind.
What's the second favorite? Take Back to the Future Trilogy's the first favorite. What comes right underneath?
Her.
Spike Jonze.
Spike Jonze is
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah. It's my favorite. It's a movie that made me want to become a filmmaker.
Great movie. I
don't
love that
put
movie.
it as my favorite just because when I think about favorite movie, I think about a movie I can watch whenever. I can throw it on whenever and I will enjoy it. I feel like Her, I kind of have to.
Right. Her is very much a mood. It's very much a mood piece.
It's very much a mood piece. It kind of like it's very emotionally draining to watch her.
Definitely.
So that's why I don't just put it on.
It's not a feel good. Not a feel good.
Not a feel good movie.
No. Kevin.
WALL-E. Specifically WALL-E in the first like half and like Earth's just a shithole. It's also like one of those things that like got me interested in like the medium of animation also. When you go to film school, they say show not tell. It's like all show not tell in that movie.
Basically, lots which is of great visual storytelling.
Which is also, because I feel like that movie, like, it's one of those movies that, like, it only works, I think, in a medium that, like, it's in. Like, there's no, I can't imagine that being, like, a weird Jon Favreau live action Lion King thing.
Please don't. Please don't.
It's just like glove for 2 hours.
Literally, like they're making Lilo and Stitch live action, and that's another movie where I feel like that is such an animated film. I don't think Stitch
gonna look horrendous.
Stitch is gonna look horrible. And let's be honest, every time they've tried to recreate WALL-E in a physical way, it never captures.
It never looks good.
The spirit of WALL-E.
Because the aesthetic of WALL-E is like junk, which is great. It works for aesthetic.
But it's also like he's a robot, but he still has these expressive things that most robots don't have.
Yeah, his eyes are so cool.
Yeah,
I love his eyes.
That's the end of the lightning round. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. That's the end of our that's the end of our episode, our conversation. But I want to be sure you guys get to plug your stuff. So where, Steven, can people find you on the internet?
On Twitter as Stevie Tenenbaum. You can also find me on TikTok as @Steven_Tenenbaum. I also have a YouTube channel, which is linked, but if not, I'm just Steven Reyes. So go there, show some love, follow me. Really appreciate it.
Definitely. Kevin.
All right, I got a lot to plug, actually.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
If you want to follow my freelancing video stuff, it's on Instagram at Jellyman Media. I have a photo dump Instagram at jellyman.photos. And I have a nonprofit film festival if you would like to donate. Both of these fellow gentlemen were our jurors for this past festival. It went off without a hitch. We had a great selection, great turnout. If you want to donate to help fund some stuff for next year to make a even greater and better show, you can follow us on Instagram at EB_indie or donate to our Ko-fi page where it's ko-fi.com/EBindie. And you can just donate how much money you would like.
Support EB Indie. We're all from East Brunswick. EB for short. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
That is our episode.
End of season 1, baby.
Hey.
big thank you to Steven Reyes and Kevin Lin for not only being on our season finale, but also being on the production crew for a number of episodes of My Favorite Movie Is so far. All of their websites and socials are down in the show notes. Now, before I do my traditional sign off, this is, as I just said, our season finale. And with that comes a little bit of an update on where we are with My Favorite Movie Is and where we have yet to go. We've produced 10 episodes of the show thus far, and I'm really happy with where the show is right now. We have listeners who are giving me some great feedback. I've created a wonderful Rolodex of, collaborators who I work with on this show. And, back when I first was, thinking about doing this podcast, I said to myself, okay, you know what, let's make 10 episodes, see where we are with the show after 10 episodes, and, decide from there if, I want to continue. And, I definitely do. I like where the show is right now, but I know it can be so much better. And I have so many ideas, so many changes to the format that I think will only make the film, the show stronger. And with that, I am happy to announce that My Favorite Movie Is Season 2 is already in production. We have some awesome guests lined up who are going to bring on some all-time classic films. I'm super, super excited. However, with that new season of production, I'm going to be taking some time to really hone in on the show, work on making it feel fresh and new, incorporating some new ideas, maybe taking out some old ideas that I just don't think are really working. And in order to, fully put my time and investment in creating this new season for the show, we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus from posting episodes bi-weekly. And, that's why this is sort of the season finale, so we can sort of take a little bit of a break and hone in on this new season. I'm not going to give a firm comeback date just yet because, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly when that's going to be. That's all going to be determined by, how we're doing on production and how many episodes can we get recorded and how much time. But I can tell you that we're aiming to come back in the spring of this year. So, the hiatus is not going to be that long. It's really only going to be a couple of months. With that said, we're not going to go on, complete radio silence. We're actually going to do something really exciting. We're going to start a My Favorite Movie Is Discord community server where fans of the show can come together, talk about the episodes, share in the love of film. This is really exciting for me. This is something that I've been wanting to start for the show for a while, and I'm happy to say that it is starting now. So in the show notes below, there will be a link for you to join our Discord community. If you already have a Discord account, it'll be very easy to join. If you don't have a Discord account, get one and join us, because people who are on this Discord server are going to play a part in how we make season 2. We're going to be doing a bit of a focus group feedback loop, as I like to call it. It's a nice little rhyme there. We're going to be sharing drafts of new episodes. We're going to be polling people for new ideas, asking for feedback on all of the new ideas and drafts and everything. I'm so thankful to those of you who are listening to the show consistently, and for those of you who have been giving me feedback on the show thus far. And so I want to show my gratitude in a way by having you help me continue to make the show. Let's create a community. Let's create a circle of people who, want to see the show succeed and who want to help put their stamp on the show as it is continuing to be created. We're going to talk to you guys one-on-one. We're going to get all of your feedback. Some people have already given us some great feedback that we're going to channel into our new format. This is really exciting, and I really hope you guys will join our Discord community. Alongside our Discord community, I'm also incredibly excited to announce that we are launching a Patreon. This is also something I've been meaning to do for the show for a while, and I'm announcing it now because as we work on the format of the show, we still need support to make the show possible. And all of your support on that Patreon is going directly into helping us make a better show, changing things about the show that will only make things more efficient and more interesting. But some of that comes with a bit of a cost. So if you go on our Patreon right now, there's a $5 tier. That's the only tier we have. I kept it real simple for you guys. Not only are you paying to directly support the show, you also are going to get some awesome perks, extended and ad-free versions of every episode, bonus content, stuff that we originally cut from the episode. We're going to, post in individual clips on that Patreon. We're also going to do commentary tracks on a lot of the films that we cover on the show. Some of those tracks may feature the guests themselves. The Patreon is going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of awesome perks I'm going to be putting on there. And obviously, being a part of the Patreon, you get access to the Discord server and you get special status on the Discord server as a patron. We're giving the listeners a lot of great ways to interact with the team here at My Favorite Movie Is. And we're really excited to be doing that. And we really hope you guys will join us in the Discord, support the show, and, stay on this ride with us as we move into season 2. Anyway, that was a little bit more rambly than usual, but I wanted to just, tell you guys where we're at and what we're doing. And I hope you guys are looking forward to the spring when we start uploading new episodes of My Favorite Movie Is. It's going to be great. But for now, I want to end off this episode how we usually end off this episode, which is, if you want to support the show, follow us on your go-to podcasting app, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that notification bell. Follow us on our social media platforms at MFMI Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you're on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, they actually just started doing reviews on Spotify. Leave us a rating and a review. You can only do reviews on Apple Podcasts, not on Spotify, but either way, a rating and or a review and all of the things I just mentioned helps the show to keep going and keep growing. And for that, we thank you tremendously. For more information about the show and a full catalog of audio and video episodes, you can go to mfmipodcast.com. You can also email us at hello@mfmipodcast.com if you have any questions or any feedback for us. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. And lastly, before we get to the credits, just a huge thank you to everybody who helped make My Favorite Movie Is Season 1 possible. Everybody who, listened to me pitch the show, who gave me feedback on the show before we launched, people who continued giving me feedback as the episodes were being posted, to my producer, Brian Novak, assistant director, Steven Reyes, to our incredible editors, Clayton and Kimberly Allen, to Monica and Elton and Matt for giving their artistry to the aesthetic, both audibly and visually to the show. Thank you to every camera operator, every sound recordist, every production assistant, to everybody who has just given me some positive validation and feedback on this show since it started. You all are the reason that this show is possible. Oh, and of course, the listeners. Thank you to everybody who listens to the show week in and week out, who shares it with their friends and family and fellow film lovers. You guys and everybody I just mentioned are the reason that this show exists. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So until season 2, thanks for listening. My Favorite Movie Is a Larry Freed Presents production. It is executive produced, hosted, created, and directed by me, Larry Freed, and is produced by me alongside Brian Novak. Our assistant director is Steven Reyes, and our editors are myself, as well as Clayton and Kimberly Allen. Our graphics designer is Monica Sarmiento. Our motion graphics designer is Elton Greenfield, and our theme song, Now and Then, as well as all original music featured on this podcast, is composed and performed by Matt Gorduke. For this episode, our camera operators were Brian Novak, Steven Reyes, and Kevin Lin, and our sound recordist was Dan Grunberg. Thank you all so much for your help on this episode. Everybody's socials and websites and what have you are in the show notes. My name is Larry Freed, and this has been Season 1 of My Favorite Movie Is. See you in the spring.